where we share tips and tools on how to thrive even as we move through challenges, because life is life and there are times when we face challenges. And that's because we all want and deserve to thrive in face of adversity and challenges. This podcast is powered by Anchor FM and performed with the G100 tracking, as well as this particular podcast also honored to have our very special guest. And this podcast also done with the for the International Childhood Cancer Charity. And for this week, we are so honored to be able to have Dr. Nancy Novack. Dr. Novack, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And would you like to share with us what is it that you do?
I wish I knew something. Um, I'm a psychologist, and I'm also a survivor of stage 4 ovarian cancer, which I was diagnosed with in 2004. Um, I believe in miracles because I think I am one, and I'm very, very grateful for my life. As a result of being in the cancer world and spending a lot of time in the infusion rooms, I felt the need to help the people that I spoke with, who most of all told me how they were more afraid of not having money than they were of dying. And that was the impetus in large ways of just saying, this is unreal. You know, they weren't telling their doctors they didn't take their meds because they thought they wouldn't get treated. They had to choose between food on the table and taking medications. And this was overwhelming to me that in this country, people were struggling with so much stress from the cost of having any chronic disease. So I vowed I was going to make a difference. I vowed I would find the money. And I started doing my research and just developed my nonprofit, which is Nancy's List. Initially, just to be a list of where the financial resources could be accessed and to educate those people living with cancer, as well as those in the healing professions and patient navigations and all these other persons who so profoundly care for the cancer community, and get this information out. So that's what the list was going to be, and it's evolved into many other different areas, but that's where I started. And it's used, this particular list keeps growing. There's a whole lot about how to live through the COVID epidemic and where to find the money. And it's been very, very valuable for many people. So I'm quite pleased that that's what I began with and have moved on from there in the last 17 years.
That is amazing. So you created this list where you provide all the resources for
Mm-hmm.
people, the families who are experiencing cancer to be able to navigate the financial part. But I know the list also has more than a financial resource, isn't it? We mentioned you have something for even for children in there. Can you share us a little bit more about those?
Well, it was pretty clear to me that the children who were living with cancer had sort of it was a bad experience overwhelmingly. So for so many of them, that they were just um, defined by being a cancer kid. And so I decided I would start a club called Nancy's Club. And I was living in San Francisco at the time and had many, many options and possibilities of ways to create adventures for these kids every weekend. And we'd go to sporting events, or we'd go to theater performances, or we'd go have beach parties. But the thing these children loved the most was going sailing on the bay. And that's a rough bay. That's a very difficult bay. But people grabbed onto this project and donated so much. We had so many boats offered to us, and crews and food and tickets to everything. And the whole community just responded. They would just do wonderful things. And um, teenagers would even do golf tournaments or whatever, tennis tournaments more than golf. They weren't doing golf. To raise money so for these kids to have art supplies or whatever. And these kids came and they were so joyful, and they just instantly best friends. They all went to camps. Um, Part of the financial resources part that I like, or the quality of life parts, where there are camps, retreats, vacations for free all over this country. And so all these little kids went to camp together and became buddies. And then there were family camps and sibling camps. And I guess my role has been to research the resources and make them available to this community. But the Kids Project was so delightful because they were so, they just forgot about being cancer kids. They just played.
They're just being kids, allowing them to be kids. The once a week is just so wonderful.
Yeah, forget the rest of it and just be with your buddies.
Yeah. And that is so beautiful, because we spoke earlier before this recording here, and how it's so important to feel good, to get a break, whether it is cancer or grief or something that a person's going through. The so from this Nancy's list, is this something that's available for people in particular state? You mentioned California, or is it national or international?
It's more than national. There are a lot of people from around the world that participate as subscribers. I send out like what you might call newsletters, but there's a huge section I've done about integrative therapies, and have list people from all over the world who are doing integrative work with cancer. And so that directory is very popular because people want to enhance and deepen their healing, and this is a very valuable tool. So, and it has everything from grief counselors into body workers or healing centers. There are all kinds of complementary or integrative, whatever word you want to use, modalities that people can take advantage of, and many of them are free. And because money is a big deal when you have cancer, but it's a wonderful resource, and I'm really pleased that we have attracted so much participation outside of the United States. And I continue to explore more ways of creating contacts with people around the world. Yeah. So it's a website. It's basically a website. It's nancyslist.org. And there's stories on there. There's a book that I wrote with 42 other people. Like, can you see this? Yes. No, you can't. Anyway, that's the book. And it's really written for newly diagnosed patients. And there are 42 authors, and they all came together with the intent to help the newly diagnosed get through the night. And they write a chapter, not a chapter, but a few pages about their experience or their words of wisdom or whatever. But I know from my own experience, it's like it was freak out time when nighttime came and I realized what had happened that day. So it's a really it's a very special book. But there's stories of gratitude, stories of hope. It comes from what I've said to Brigitte earlier. There's an instant intimacy that comes with being a cancer person or living with cancer. I like that far more. Yeah. The intimacy, and all of a sudden, you speaking an almost different language, because it holds you together, and it's like as I said, we're much more than our cancer, but it defines us in some ways, and it strengthens the bonds. So in my world, there's not enough support for everybody who needs cancer. So if we can make a difference in some ways of just doing it this way, I feel very good about it.
Yeah. And while you mentioned about the two things that I want to discuss briefly. The first thing is actually, would you care reading the title of your book and where audience can find the book? The book you're talking
Where
about.
can we find it? Well, the book is on, the book, is that what you're speaking of? Yes, this? Okay, that's on Amazon. It's called I Am With You, Love Letters to Cancer Patients. And I'll just tell you a sweet story. When I got diagnosed, which I thought I just was having appendicitis or something, I had no idea what, I knew nothing. And my doctor came in, and I was in this very lovely room at Stanford, and he talked to me and said, you have a very bleak diagnosis and a pretty rough prognosis, but I think I can help you, and I am with you.
Mm.
And that's the title of the book. And it's appropriate because I think we all agree that I am with you is very profound, and that was my experience with him from day one, that he was totally with me. And as he's leaving the room that evening, and he said, I know all your friends and family, when they go home and you have a really hard time accepting what happened today, here is my home phone number. Please call me. And I did call him at 2:30 in the morning. And he was gracious and generous and just gave me that reassurance once again that he was with me.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I think it's an important, the most important 4 words that I know.
Yeah.
And I often say that to my clients or whoever I'm working with. It's just, I am with you. And it's just, tears sometimes come down because it's so deep. And I mean it, and he meant it, and I think we understand.
Yeah, cancer and grief in all form is a lot of time can cause us to feel so alone and lonely, and it's one of those that you might have your loved ones surrounding you, and yes, you know that they care about you, that they love you, but it now you suddenly have the feeling a lot of time this you're not in the same boat anymore. I had a similar experience when I was probably like 27 or 28, and that one, it wasn't even cancer, that was come later with me, but it was something where I suddenly was I passed out driving on the highway in here in Los Angeles, and it was the most interesting thing where they after all this tests and so forth, they said go to a cardiologist, talk with one. I said okay, call the cardiologist, and like typical many other things, the appointment is 3 weeks out. Like, okay, no. Well, I didn't know any better. Like you said, I didn't know any better. You thought appendicitis. I was like, apparently no big deal, probably what have you. And the cardiologist office called that week. This was, I made an appointment Thursday, went to work Friday, and the cardiologist office called and left a message at the home number because that's what I provided them. And so when I came back from work on Friday, there is this message from the cardiologist office saying, hey, we have you and we have your information. We see that your appointment is 3 weeks out. Please come before the office open on Monday. Dr. So will fit you in. You don't need to call back. If you can't reach us over the weekend, don't worry. We have the spot for you. Do not wait until 3 weeks. Come in first thing on Monday. We're gonna fit you in because you need to be seen right away. And that just shoot me out of my body. And so I shared this with my closest family member, and my former husband. Everybody's like, oh, well, good for you. And then they say they repeat it about 5 times in that same message. If you feel about this and that, please go to call 911 emergency room right away. I was like, am I
Right.
Right.
They do have hearts, and I used to call these people angels. The people that are in the medical world. I know they have a bad rap in lots of ways, but there are I mean, who would want to take that kind of job? It's really dedicated, committed. It's amazing to me.
time, at the same time, this where you say, you know, waking, you can't go to sleep that night. You're like, what the heck? And what
Yeah.
this? And it was the feeling where you have all these people around you, and you feel as if you are completely alone
Yes.
until you are able
And that
to speak with someone who could relate with me. Thankfully, it was 2 days later, the cardiologist who assured me, okay, you know, just like your oncologist. But that was so true when we're going through things, whether it's grief from any cause, and including cancer or some such sudden diagnosis. It's like you're so alone. Sometimes you feel so alone, even with a lot of people. So it was amazing that you have a doctor who
oh
will call up
yeah,
in.
everybody wants it. Yeah, but I think, you know, our mission was no one will ever go through cancer alone,
Mhm.
because there are ways, in many ways, not to be feeling that way, because you need to be connected. You need to, because the emotional part of it and the deep and openness, you know, people are much more open, have gone through a trauma. This is a trauma, and it needs to be treated as a trauma, which so many people, I don't think, get it. And you know, when you're in trauma, as you know, you go back and forth so fast. You're completely numb at some point, and then other times you're completely overwhelmed with emotions, and you can flip back and forth rapidly. So I think it's a significant trauma in our lives and in the lives of the people who love us. So
Yeah. And
yeah, we have. Another thing he said one time is, if you don't have, it was great. If you don't have a psychologist, go get one, and preferably someone who's gone through cancer. And if you're not on antidepressants, get on them and double them if you're on them, because this is a rocky road. And it's just, there's such a humanity about that. You know, it's just very much like he checked on me, not just my physical, but my emotional state and what I was going through. Um, and I, you know, I encourage everyone who's going in to work with cancer people, like, you know, work out some of your issues, because a lot is expected and needed to help these folks get through the emotional crisis that they feel so much of the time.
and that is the beautiful, and that is very true, as you said earlier. Sometimes we, in this society, everybody, and it's good to be positive, good to be strong, but a lot of time we also want to remember, I would say, with what you say, we're human.
Yes.
You know, it's to allow ourselves to be human instead of just being a trooper. It's good to be a trooper.
Right. And you and I spoke a little bit before about the language that we use to define ourselves in while we're going through this process. You know, and I often fight the language of, I'm a fighter, you know, I'm a warrior, you know, that somehow to me separates the body from the human.
Yeah.
And I think we've got to put those two things together. And I prefer saying I'm living with cancer, and learn how to integrate that into my worldview, that I'm always going to be living with cancer. I better figure out how to. Um, I've been really fortunate in my process, but I'm also worked with hundreds of women who were not. So, you know, just to be with them, just to be able to say to a client or a patient, I am with you, just is so critically, it's moving into the direction that so they're not alone. They know they're not alone, and it matters. It's a strong part of the healing process.
And that is one thing I would mention. When I joined your list, and I can update this, I did not have this service for anyone also who are facing cancer or any form of challenges and cause of grief. I actually, now it's only once a week, but we talk about how it wakes you up or keep you up at night. I do a late night grief talk now, right? On
Good
on
night.
Wednesday. Yeah, right now it's only on
That is
Wednesday,
great.
10 p.m. So it's Pacific time, so it's pretty late for the rest of the country, and it's probably will expand. But there is, if you are facing cancer or other challenges and other cause of 40 different causes of grief, just know there is Nancy's list that provide all the resource on cancer. And if you're up at night and after days can't sleep at night, there is a late night grief talk of people who can relate, definitely. So Nancy, for our audience, whether we are navigating through cancer or not, we mentioned earlier as well, there are a couple tips, a couple way of the things that can help us move through and walk through, so to say, adversities and challenges. Would you care to share, perhaps we mentioned gratitude and hope. Would you care to share certain tips as to people facing challenges and facing tough times, whether it's cancer or otherwise, something that can help us keep going, so to say?
Well, you just opened up my heart, I have to tell you. That's a very generous thing to do.
Oh,
And I think people ask me all the time, how did you make it when Susie Q didn't make it? And what did you sit under a famous tree in India? What's your magic potion? And I will tell you what I really think happened. I think my heart got opened in a big fat way. I think that I was so impressed with the generosity and grace of the people that I met along the path, of these people in the infusions, but the medical staff, everything. Just all of a sudden, every day became a little special. And I knew I had a rocky road, but I held on to possibilities. Hold on to the possibility that this thing is going to work, just let the negative out of my life. Really worked hard to keep that out of my life and just never give up. I think a lot what happens to people, unfortunately, most of the people I work with are women, but they do give up. They just think this is, I feel badly, or I can't eat, nothing tastes good, it's never going to change. All that kind of thought processes, which I just say, shh, quiet down, take a bath, dance, do anything you can to laugh. And I think we share that, the power of laughter. There's a chapter in the book, who I have to say is written by a stripper, and hers is all about the power of laughter. And I had to include it because it was so honest. And there's just, even just go to comedy hour. I don't care what, but it's, whatever it is to bring some joy. Because a lot of who we are determines how we deal with this disease or deal with challenges of all sorts. And it's a time of transformation. It's a time of like getting rid of the stuff that is in the way, because we don't have that luxury right now. We got to stay as much as we can and get rid of people who are negative about you. There was one time I gave a party. I gave a lot of parties when I was sick. Don't ask me. I don't understand it, but I did. And one time this guy is, everybody's toasting and he's giving a eulogy for me. And I just said, Peter, I'm not dying. I'm not going anywhere. Why are you talking about me in the past tense? So I think that a lot of what it was my heart was so thrilled. I live near a beach. That's my healing center, where I can go all the time to a beach. And surround yourself with positive people and people who really are sincere and honest and keep you there.
That is so beautiful, because it's definitely, as you said, it's people that surround you can make a big difference. And how you see things. If you give up, well, then you give up. And I hear you. I hear sounds like you find moment to moment, like you said, what's opened your heart, and what is it that you can you can enjoy at the moment, and what is it that you can you mentioned earlier to be grateful. What is that you can bring hope up at the moment? So yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it's hard sometimes to go there. That's why I think grief and gratitude play a dance with one another. That sometimes you can access the grief really quickly and not the gratitude. And so it's like when you find yourself getting caught in poor me, kind of thinking, okay, you just have to willfully say, stop. I'm grateful that I had this doctor. I'm grateful I was at Stanford. I'm grateful that I had my family and friends. But I finding little things that made me grateful, and big things too. But I think, I even sign my letters oftentimes with immense gratitude for who you are, what you do, because that's really the joy of this project for me is I have met amazing people. Just Brigitte, just so many people who are so consciously offering themselves. And these camps, for example, or these retreats are often just free. And these little rural towns raise money all year long so they can give this experience to someone who's living with cancer. Like that just thrills me. That is exciting. I just respect them so much and how they've chosen to devote themselves to this, to giving these kids, mostly these kids, wonderful experiences. So if you do go to the website, go to financial service resources, you go down and you look, just open even if you're not interested in going to a camp or a retreat, just see it because you will get the same kick I did. It was so heartwarming to see the generosity.
and we will have the website on the descriptions. But would you care to share with our audience what's the website?
It's just Nancy's NANCYS list.org.
nancyslist.org for anyone. And unfortunately, in a way, in this modern world, almost everybody knows somebody with cancer. It's one of those things.
Exactly true. Yes.
And so feel welcome to go to nancyslist.org. The information and the resource available from people internationally, and it's just to help each other feel the support and knowing somebody who can relate. I mean, that's the whole thing. I think feeling supported is knowing somebody who can relate with them. And as we complete our time together here, Dr. Novack, is there one final message that you would love to share with our audience?
Well, I'll go back to the first one. No one needs to go to, no one will go through cancer alone. And I am with you.
That is so beautiful and very much heart opening and heartwarming. Thank you so much, Dr. Novack. That is just your work is amazing, and you're an amazing person, and thank you for providing resource cancers. Being an oncologist some 18 years before, I've seen how devastating it is. Like we talk, yes, the patient physically, but emotionally to the patient and everyone in the circle and the loved ones. And so thank you for all your resources. And this is again, it provide Nancy's list provide financial resource as well as resource of all different practitioners to help the physical as well as the emotional part of it. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your tips today, Dr. Novack. And for you, my friends who are listening to this, if you have any questions or you have tips from your own journey, whether with cancer or other form of adversity, share them in the comment below so we can continue learning and supporting each other. Thank you for joining us. Please share these conversations with your friends and families because sometimes we don't know who knows somebody who are facing a tough time. So please share that. And this is Dr. Brigitte Tan, your grief transformation specialist for individual and businesses. founder of the International Childhood Cancer Charity and United States Country Chairs of G100 Global Networking, All Ladies League. And you, my friend, wherever you are, even if you're going through tough times, know that we're here for you and helping you, making it a thriving day, one day at a time. And we will see you again next week. Bye-bye for now. Welcome to your joyful